So it's Friday Live. Today is Friday. That means Nicole and I are here to talk about woodworking, things that happened in the last week, and answer some questions from folks like you. We do participate in Patreon. So if you go to patreon.com/woodwhisperer, you can sign up. And if you go $4 or higher, you get a little bit of, what's that?
It's $5.
$5 or higher? Oh, it's Woodtalk that's $4. It's also confusing to me.
Dougie.
Can you take him in
there?
Yep. This was a great idea.
Yeah.
So, yes, so if you go to Patreon and sign up at that $5 level, just keep an eye on them. There's plastic and wood everywhere. This is starting out to be a really great show today. If you sign up at that $5 or higher level, we will pre-select some questions from that group of people and have them here on the show. And Nicole will also be taking questions from YouTube. If you're on Facebook, we apologize, but we can't watch that chat at the same time. But we will make an effort to go back afterwards and answer your questions. So while Nicole's gone, I'm just going to jump right into questions here. I don't even think we have anything to show off or any thank yous or anything today. So let's just jump right into it. Stumptown Woodworks wrote in. He says, I made a couple of tables where the legs are splayed out from the apron. Apron gets attached with pocket holes. He actually said gasp. I'd like to try a mortise and tenon. I see two ways. Angle the mortise in the leg or cut the mortise perpendicular to the leg with an angled tenon. Both options make me want to justify a domino. Thoughts on how to do it without a domino just yet? Okay, so you're on the right track. I honestly think a loose mortise and tenon joint when you're talking about angles like that is so much easier. If you watch, what was it, the dining chair project that I put out a couple of weeks ago, maybe a couple months ago now, there was a quick demonstration of a process that involves loose tenon joinery. And you basically, as you're putting your mortises into your workpieces, you're going to put support pieces that have the same angle cut as a bevel, and those will support your router as you do the routing. So go check that video out. It'll show you how that technique works. That's my recommendation. It's so much easier because all you have to do is cut the end of the piece to an angle and then mortise it, and then your other piece gets mortised, and then you just make your tenons as a separate step. So I wouldn't even bother with angled tenons or trying to come up with a jig that angles your mortise into the leg. To me, that's just a waste of time. Go with the loose joinery and you'll be much, much happier.
Woodtalk came back last week, right? Mm-hmm. So just FYI.
We have two shows already from the new...
They were on vacation.
Who's asking?
Just, they were asking about if it came back or blah, blah, blah.
Well, what kind of fan doesn't know that we put two shows out? I take issue with it.
It's all right.
Yeah, we started a couple weeks ago, and we're recording again today for the next 2 weeks. Okay, Peter Boyes. Boys. I always get that wrong. He says, understanding that Marc has nothing on his going on in his life right now, since he outsourced his guild instruction, when can we expect the Ruobo toolchest to be created? I don't know. Okay, Alan wrote in.
You're such an ass.
I don't know.
Yeah.
The people want to know when the next guild meeting is. I don't know. That's why I haven't replied yet. But as soon as I can get my brain on that, we'll totally have my brain on that. Okay, Alan wrote in. Alan Lilich. He says, I'm retired, now setting up a serious garage shop and have a layout and dust collection question. Now, Alan gave me all kinds of numbers and measurements, and it's a lot of confusing stuff that you kind of need a diagram to completely understand, but he's looking at a Jet and Oneida. Both have a different footprint. One takes up a little bit more space, and I think one is more mobile, so it's a little more conducive to moving things around, and he's got a fairly tight situation to work with. So he's basically asking, is duct length so important that he goes with something that takes up more space? It's very valuable footprint space that he's taking up. If that one requires a little bit less in the way of ducting, is that the better option? It's so hard to tell on this, Alan. It's one of those things. There's numerical calculations you can do to figure out these things. But ultimately, duct run length can matter. But if we're only talking a couple of feet here or there, it's probably not going to make a big difference. I would say go with the thing that gives you the lowest footprint. Both the Oneida and the Jet that he's looking at are both comparable, decent units. I think they will both do well. But I would actually go with the smaller footprint, the thing that gives you more optimal space or functionality in the shop. In a small space like that, I don't really think it's going to make that much of a difference if you have a few more feet in a duct. All right, Corey wrote in. I know you're big on safety, but there's nothing about using anti-kickback Pawls. That's actually a word in woodworking. We should start a list of words that I think are dumb, and we should just change them.
Pawls?
Pawls. P-A-W-L-S. That's these little things right here, okay? So these on most, you'll find these mostly on not aftermarket splitter devices. It's always with the manufacturer's splitters. You find anti-kickback Pawls. I think we should just probably call them spiky grabby doojobbies.
That doesn't roll off the tongue.
It rolls off my tongue quite nicely. So it's basically these little spike devices, and the idea is they pivot, and as you move a workpiece under this, it kind of reminds me of the tire popper thing when you're coming out of like a rental car place.
Yeah.
Right? So if you go this way, no problem. But if a workpiece wants to go this way, it really jams right in there. Okay? You can't pull back. So it's an anti-kickback device that literally will grab the workpiece if it's even thinking about kicking back. So between that and a splitter, you've got a pretty safe arrangement there. So he says, I don't recall seeing them in any of your videos. In fact, I noticed that lots of videos on YouTube about woodworking don't have them. Am I missing something about it damaging the workpiece? Thank you. Okay, so you don't see that much because most people, let's say a good percentage of people, will take the built-in splitter device and just take it off and never put it back on. Why? Because they're kind of clunky. Most of them are just crap, and they're a little bit wobbly. Even these anti-kickback devices, these Pawls, as they're called, these are just kind of, what's the word, chintzy? Cheap? Janky? They just don't feel, they don't feel like they're as effective as they could be. So it's not damaging the work, it's just a lot of people just don't have confidence in them. A lot of times you can also get work because of this, sort of mobility and flexibility here. You can get your thin workpiece sort of caught between the blade and the pawl and the blade and the splitter or riving knife that's in place. So a lot of people just say that it's not worth it. I just don't feel like I trust things going through this. So the concept is there, the theory is good, but the execution is kind of lacking. Now that said, on my PM2000, mine actually works pretty well. Very seldom do I have a problem with it, and most of the time I actually do. Kind of made a promise to myself last year that I would start using the guard a lot more, and I have. So I actually can't remember if it was the most recent video. I might have had the Brett guard installed. So I have a new guard system that doesn't have the anti-kickback Pawls, so you may not see it on mine at all. But I have been using these for like the last year. All right. Mike Tars said, all caps, and this is important because he references it later. Hope this finds you all feeling better. Marc, I was wondering, have you ever used a Wobble Dado Blade? And how well will it work? He says, no, I'm not yelling. I just don't see so well, so I use all caps. Thank you. And cut some slack for Cremona. He can't help it.
He can't.
You know what, we did that 23andMe thing?
Yeah.
And I told Matt and Shannon about it, and I said, I'm actually a little bit nervous that I might find out that Cremona and I are distant relatives. There's certainly a possibility of that.
Well, I don't think 23andMe does anything with Ancestry. Ancestry.com does. They have a thing where you do the DNA.
But don't they tell you, like, regional ancestry?
Yeah.
I mean, they're not going to tell me who my grandparents were.
Right. But with
But it will say, like, you're actually Spanish and not Italian.
Like, if you were hoping...
Because your name means Spanish.
If you were hoping to connect with, possible relatives... Yeah. Ancestry.com is the way to go with that, because they have a whole back-end system. I've learned all that.
I got a whole back-end system too, Nicole. Okay, so his question is about a Wobble Dado Blade. If you're not familiar with a Wobble Dado Blade, it was an invention that most people don't even use them anymore. I don't hear many people talking about them. So you're familiar with the dado stack, right? You get a bunch of blades with chippers in the middle and the big blades on the outside. Just looks like a slightly smaller standard blade on the outside, and you stack them up to get the width you want, and you can make grooves and dados. Well, a Wobble Dado was a way to do this cheaper, and possibly even on saws that wouldn't normally take a dado blade because the arbor post there isn't long enough to accept that full width. So what this is kind of like a single blade that has a thing that you adjust, causing the blade to skew at an angle. So if you think about that, if the blade is at an angle and it's rotating, it can actually cut a particular width cut just by rotating that angle, right? So the wider the angle, the wider the dado. Well, the problem with that is you're not getting a lot of teeth making the cut, and you wind up with a cut that's not very clean. And that's the primary disadvantage of a Wobble Wobble. That's the primary disadvantage of a Wobble Dado like that. So that's why they've kind of fallen out of favor. I don't even know anybody who uses one, but they're a little bit, they're less expensive, but the quality definitely suffers. So if you can get a dado stack, true dado stack, go for it. If all you have is a Wobble stack, then go ahead and use it, but you might get more tear out, and it's just kind of, yeah, most people just don't like them.
Ness is getting ready to go to bed, so she
Ness.
wanted to say good day, Spags. Happy Friday. Here for a good time, not a long time. Today I gotta go back to bed and have a good weekend.
Go to sleep.
You gorgeous things.
Little Ness.
Go to sleep.
I hope it's fun in Australia. Is that where she is?
Yes, yes.
All right.
It's Kara and Craig that are in New
That's
Zealand.
how I put my kids to sleep. I sing. Totally
and then
key.
Mateo says, "Stop it!
Stop, Dad!
Jeez!
Rub my back already." Okay, Cliff DeYoung wrote in. He says, "My wife wants me to make a coffee table. I'm thinking about using a shaker table plan and just shortened it and making it a little bit longer. Do you think that would make sense? I have a cherry shaker hall table, not from the guild, I made already, and I thought a matching coffee table would look nice." Absolutely, but here's the thing: the legs on that shaker table are really skinny. I mean, they go down to like 5/16 at the bottom. It's super skinny. So you're gonna wanna scale it up. But yes, you could totally take that concept and develop it into a coffee table, but look at those legs and increase the maximum size. Probably wanna use 8/4 stock for that, so you could look at 1 3/4 square and then taper down from there proportionally, right? So you just want fatter legs on that. I think it'd be perfectly fine. It'd make a great coffee table. Josh Kendall says, been meaning to get a jointer so I could start buying rough lumber, but I'm not sure what to buy. I've been looking at benchtop models. Since I just started out, would it be a better idea to get a benchtop model and upgrade in the future, or go straight to a full-size machine? For a similar price to an entry-level full-size machine, I can get a benchtop model with a spiral cutter head. I'm mostly doing cabinet face frames, cutting boards, smaller items. All right, so if you have a good quality benchtop version, I suppose you can get by with that. My hesitation here is I always think everyone's going to get into woodworking and go like whole hog, right? So save yourself some time and effort and just get the good jointer, the better jointer now. Not to say that the benchtop isn't going to be good. You can use it, but at some point, if you get further into woodworking, it will become a frustration for you. So there's nothing wrong with buying now. Just keep it in good condition and resell it later and then invest that into a new one. You'll probably get most of your money back. But there is the thought of, hey, if you're going to do this for a while, get the full-size floor standing and go for it. But the trap here is when you first start out, you tend to underestimate what you need. Even if you make that purchase of the floor standing with the intention of, hey, I think I'm really going to be into this, I'll be doing this for years, you still may buy a jointer that's a little bit, maybe it's underpowered, maybe it's not wide enough, and eventually you'll upgrade to an 8-inch jointer. So just be careful of that trap, because you could save yourself a little bit of effort and money by buying the benchtop first, learning more about what jointers do and what you want to do as a woodworker, and then upgrading later to your final jointer. And then you won't have to upgrade after that point. So it kind of depends. It's a hard thing to nail down.
Well, I think that's pretty much in any kind of hobby, craft, or thing that you get into. You know, go all out and you buy the best and you're like, and then you just kind of peter off of it.
Yeah, well, and he could go and buy the best now, and maybe he wants a big 8-inch Powermatic, or even a 10-inch, or, you know, there's a lot of other companies out there making jointers, but one of these big, you know, big giant aircraft carrier things. But it's so early to do that, and it would cost so much money. That's generally not advisable. So the upgrade path is kind of an unusual beast. Okay, Ben Achenborg. I just like to.
I know, you're messing with them.
What was I? Okay. As I finish up the pizza peel, I'm left with a choice of finishes. In the original video, Marc uses tried and true varnish. I was considering using either that or General Finishes salad bowl finish. I know you're a fan of General Finishes. I am as well. Is there any reason to go with one or the other? Thanks, and happy Friday.
Happy Friday.
Yeah, two very different finishes, Ben. The General Finishes salad bowl finish is just a wiping varnish. And it's really, really close, if not the same exact stuff that you find in a can of Seal-A-Cell. So you're putting polyurethane on the board there. So you have to ask yourself, do you want poly on there? Now for me, I like the tried and true because it's a polymerized oil. It's definitely on the safer side of things. There is no resin. You're not building a film on the surface per se. And if you're putting that pizza peel into a very hot oven, if it touches the bottom surface, I don't know if you're pulling it out of a regular oven or a stone or a pizza oven, but there's really high temperatures. So if you have plastic on the surface and that plastic meets a really high temperature, what's going to happen? It's going to melt, right? So I don't really think that that's the best idea to go with a film form finish. So I would go with the tried and true. And honestly, I am always skeptical of oil finishes, and people are like, oh, you apply a coat a week for the rest of your life and it'll be great. And I'm like, well, that's stupid. Who's going to do that? So I actually have applied.
Definitely not you.
Definitely not me. But kind of as an experiment, I have applied multiple coats of that tried and true over the course of the last couple of years since I made it. And I'm finding that the finish is actually building to some extent, and it is becoming more durable over time. But I am continually applying it, especially after I use it.
So we have a friend in the woodworking area. I'm like, I can't think of it. He's in the guild group, but Carl Hudson. He sent you some Skyrim stuff. So he's in the hospital right now in the ER.
Carl? Oh, what does he have the mumps?
No, I think he has an abscess, or maybe, I don't know. But Carl, if you're watching this, holy moly! I hope you feel better soon.
What?
I don't know. He's in the ER.
So he's just swollen and he's not sure what it is.
Yeah, and he doesn't really have any pain, but it's like this.
His whole side of his face is blown out.
I think it's his tooth, maybe. I don't know.
You know, it could be, Carl. It could be a giant zit. You pop that thing, it's going to be like a fire hose.
Fire hose. Oh my gosh! I pulled up Facebook just to quickly check in.
Carl, good luck, man.
So
that's a bummer.
Yes, feel better soon.
He's got a smile on his face.
He does. I know. He's like.
Or the thing is so swollen, he just has a permanent smile. Like he can't help it. He's just grinning.
Oh man, that's a rough.
Well, good luck, dude. Aaron Hargrave says, "What's up? A live edge table I did seems to have some black poopy-like substance that forms in two spots." Not on any cracks or spalting. I scraped and sanded the spots back. Any suggestion on what the deal is and how to move on? I did have a glass on top of the oil and lacquered wood. Also, do you believe in aliens? Are you an alien?
What?
It's a fair question.
Who said this?
Aaron wants to know if we believe in aliens.
Aaron?
And wants to know if we're aliens.
Do you live in Colorado?
If we were aliens, you'd be dead already. Wait, that doesn't make any sense.
That doesn't make any sense at all.
So this is tricky because I would kind of need to see what these things are to know the nature of them. Black, dark brown poopy spots. Maybe someone pooped on it. Who knows? We got a puppy. He poops on everything. It's kind of hard to say. I would love to see pictures. So if you can, send me some pictures and I'll try to give you some advice. But if the dark spots went away, then it could have just been something weird in the finish.
Could it be like a bug, like a beetle?
Making a dark spot?
I don't know.
It sounds like a stain.
Yeah.
So it's unlikely that it's caused by a bug. So I don't know.
Guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to pull a question from the Facebook chat because I just went in just to quickly.
Well, holy smokes.
Terry Ackenbald.
Ackenberg?
Actionbald? I don't know.
Archibald.
Archibald.
Actionbald. That's actually my superhero name as I get older. I am Actionbald. Okay.
Trying to darken a panel after I stained and polyurethaned, and I read I could use a gel stain over the darken and let that dry and refinish. What are your thoughts on this?
I'm still thinking about Captain Actionbald. An old, 50-something middle-aged guy with a giant belly. He looks like George from Seinfeld. Captain Actionbald.
Isn't that Captain Underpants?
Yeah,
too?
so he wants to know if he can darken it with gel stain.
Yeah, after he's already stained and polyurethaned it.
Totes, Terry. The thing is though, if you have polyurethane on it.
What's totes mean?
Totes.
It means totally. Just to get,
We're talking, these are all young people.
No,
here.
they're not.
So gel stain is an interesting beast because it's almost like paint. It does have sort of like a varnish product in there, so you can apply that to a film finish. Gel stain does not necessarily rely on absorption into the wood like most traditional stains would. So yeah, you can almost use it like a glaze in a way to kind of darken the tone somewhat. but it's a little bit of an experiment. And what you're really doing is just laying that pigment right on top. You got a little bit of finish that kind of solidifies it. You're going to want to put more finish on top of that when you're done to really seal that in, because if you don't, you could probably take your fingernail and just kind of scrape it off. The adhesion is what I'd be a little bit concerned about. So yes, it can be done, but it's a little bit of an experiment, and you do want to be careful, and you certainly want to put something on top of that gel stain when you're finished.
Robert Harrell just said, I just joined the guild. If I buy a project and have questions, will the instructor answer? Yes, most definitely. Yeah, that's part of the service.
Yeah, when you leave a comment on any one of the posts for a particular project, if it's Cremona's, you leave a comment, Cremona gets an email in his inbox. You leave a comment on one of my posts, I get an email, and all future guild instructors, it'll work the same way, and they are required to respond.
Yep, and we also have the support that has a little drop-down list,
Yeah,
right?
so there's a support page where if your question is not specifically about the project, or maybe you just don't want to have the question be public because the comments are public, you can go to the support form, select your instructor, and send them a question directly.
And you may or may not have seen this, but we also have student discounts. So we talked about
our discounts are
getting great.
Bananas.
Yeah, we just added one from CR Muterspa. So Bell Forest is one lumber provider that ships online lumber, and CR Muterspa, who's in Ohio.
And they've been an advertiser of ours.
Yeah, they've been with us for a long time.
Gosh, for years.
So they just joined the discounts too. So
Lee Nielsen.
Lee Nielsen.
Which is, people are going nuts with that.
Yeah.
They're going to probably say, never mind. We're getting too many discounts.
We are a online woodworking school. What can I say?
We're official.
Yeah, and I'm in talks with Rockler right now.
Oh, nice. We've had Rockler discounts in the past, but it kind of depends on who's running the show. Over there. So they come and go.
But they have a whole program where if you're a school and all that stuff. Anyway.
We're not a school, just so you know, but we kind of act a little bit like an online school.
We are an online woodworking
We teach
school.
online, but again, I get a little bit nervous when we use the terminology.
All right. They are students. They're learning. They're working through it.
It could be worse, Nicole. We could refer to our stuff as semesters, like Shannon does. And then you're really screwed.
Yeah. Linux Geek 99 says, no question, get Dougie some doggy treats.
Oh, nice. Well, thank you, Linux Geek 99.
And then
I like Linux Geek.
Benjamin is back saying, for Dougie treats.
Ackenborg.
Ackenborg. Hi, Joseph Mensch.
Hey, Joe.
He says, hi, Mr. and Mrs. Spags.
What's happening, dude? Joseph is my buddy.
Yep.
Joseph and I text.
Do you?
We're closer now. We have a texting relationship.
Yeah. It's like different levels of...
We're just at a different level. I mean, eventually I get there with people. Joseph is a texting
Never on
buddy.
the phone call. Yeah.
Don't call me on the phone. I hate the phone. But I will text.
Yes. Adam Comfort, any hints on the topic of the new book? Inquiring minds want to know.
I haven't really been restricted on what I could say about this, but I don't want to necessarily let the cat out of the bag because I kind of want it to be like a big deal, a surprise. But it will be on joinery. Let's just say that. Here's the other thing. I hope people aren't disappointed by this, but this is a book squarely aimed at beginners.
Yeah.
And people who are coming into the craft, who are new, who want a approachable, easily readable, bite-sized sort of instruction, very visually focused on how to execute common woodworking joints, fine woodworking joints, right? So it's for that person who maybe has gone to YouTube, is a big fan of some of the makers out there, but realizes there's some more fancy stuff they could get into. How do they, we're trying to bridge that gap and say, hey, you, Mr. Maker guy, new woodworker, let's make some fine furniture stuff. And here are the joints you need to know to do that. So that's going to be the topic, and it is a much lighter weight sort of thing. This is not the 192 page. It's not a sequel to hybrid woodworking, if you will. It's just taken a little bit of a different approach.
Gary Willis in the chat room just said,
there's a missile in my house, Gary. Go ahead.
Oh, that's not the right one. You need to go to. He asked if there's a military discount for the guild, and yes, there is. I would encourage you to go to the woodwhispererguild.com/FAQ.
That stands for frequently asked questions.
Yes. And there it will tell you all you need to know what you
It says, do you offer a military discount?
Yeah.
And my mom will take care of you.
Yeah. You click there and then
we do.
There's
indeed.
a whole process.
Yep, it's a whole thing.
It's a whole thing.
What else you got? Let's do it.
Ryan Elliott, Mark, I know you prefer fuming Q-sawn.
Quarter sawn.
Oh, yeah.
That's fine.
White oak with ammonia in an article from 2007. I was wondering if you've had a chance, if you've changed that preference with the innovations and less caustic fuming.
Well,
finishing.
I told a lot of lies in 2007.
Really?
No.
Like, what?
Yeah, I mean, I have
Doesn't
changed.
sound like you.
I have changed my perspective on things, and thank you for allowing that to happen. You know, a lot of people will watch an old video or read an old article and say, like, think
This
that I'm
bit
full.
rate is horrible.
Well, besides that, they think I'm full of crap because now I do things a little bit differently, and it's like, dude, it was over 10 years ago. Am I allowed to evolve and change my opinion on things? So this is one of those things. Ammonia fuming is a really cool technique, and I was kind of intrigued with it because it's a chemical reaction that's happening in the wood as the ammonia fumes combine with, you know, the tannins in the wood, and it sort of creates this chemical stain and turns it to a darker color. So that was just neat, right? But you gotta have ammonia fume protection, right? So ammonia, when the gas gets into your eyes, it actually turns into acid, and it's really, really bad for you. So you were talking full sealed goggles, respirator with the proper filters for ammonia, and you got to build a big tent. It's just this whole production.
It's a whole thing.
So if you want to do it,
when you did that.
Yeah, it's neat, but it's also very unpredictable and quite dangerous. So yes, I have changed. You know, I still think it's cool, and anyone who knows and does the research is more than welcome to do it. I think it produces, you know, pretty cool results, although slightly unpredictable. But I think most people are probably better served using, you know, combinations of dyes and shellacs. I think Jeff Jewett has a really good article on how to replicate a fumed finish with very specific recommendations for products. And it's much, much safer. You just, you know, it's normal finish stuff. I definitely have the burps.
I noticed.
Excuse me. Look.
It's not very
I'm
attractive.
a professional, Nicole, and I need a haircut. Look, I think my hair's thicking up.
Yeah.
So look for that article, and I think you just Google it. You'll probably find it, and that's a good way to go. I think it involves some dye, then you have a sealing step with shellac, then you use a glaze on it, and then you work into your finish, whatever top coat you want.
Have you not answered Jeannie's question?
Who, Jeannie?
Jeannie, let me, just was going to go. Jeannie Gracie.
I recognize the name.
She says, then please answer my guild question then.
What guild?
I don't know. I'm going to
I answer all guild questions. If you haven't received a reply, it could be just an email snafu where maybe I find a lot of times my reply ends up in your spam box.
Oh, yeah.
So people don't necessarily see that.
Oh, yeah. You replied to her 12 days ago.
Jeannie, please open my email because I replied to you. Yeah, 12 days ago, January 7th. Would you like me to read?
I'm guessing it would. I'm assuming this is the latest and only question we have from you.
I said
about the Seattle area.
I am definitely thinking of organizing a little meetup. Nothing I'm doing work-wise is at a public venue, so it would have to be planned separately. I appreciate the suggestions too. If I decide to do something, I will post it on Facebook and probably shoot out an email heads up that Jeannie won't get because she doesn't get my emails. So there. How's that? We set them up and smack them down. Yeah, I actually, when it comes to guild emails, sometimes I'm behind because I'm just really focused on other things. But most of the time I get back within 24 hours.
Ned wants to know, hey, Marc, do you make your own ebony plugs or buy them pre-lathed? It seems I can only find square stock. Don't you have a video where you make your own plugs?
I always make my own. Yeah. So I'll buy turning. I buy turning stock, usually turning blanks of ebony. I haven't bought it in a while. And then I just resaw them to the right dimensions and get, you know, sticks out of them and cut my own. I've never purchased pre-made plugs. I didn't even know anybody makes pre-made plugs other than the fake plastic ones.
Adam Comfort wants to know, how often do you sharpen your blades during a project? What do you look for in your cut to tell you to sharpen the tool?
Sharpening is, you know, it's one of those things that I tend to put off a little longer than I should. I very rarely sharpen within a project. Most of the time, when there's downtime between projects, I'll take some of my most commonly used chisels, just give them a quick touch-up. You know, bottom line is, once you're fairly experienced with your tools and how they cut in different species, you'll know. Bottom line is, you know what it feels like to be sharp, and you could start to see, well, this is not quite, it's starting to crush fibers instead of slicing them. So if you're doing chopping action, and you see a lot of crushing in that end grain, that means that your chisel is just not sharp enough, right? So that's typically the first thing I look for. And if I have to start pushing harder than I usually do, that's when I know it's starting to get a little bit dull. And remember that a dull chisel is still insanely sharp and will slice your skin like that. But a dull chisel requires you to push with more force. And that's why they say the most dangerous tool is a dull one, right? Because you have to push harder, which means if you have an accidental slip, you have more of a chance to push it into a digit or a hand or a leg or something.
She says it was about the Veritas curve drawing tool. I told her, I said, I don't see that question, so I'm asking her how she submitted it.
Yeah, I don't see it either.
Yeah. We got a question from Dave.
Or maybe it was on the website and I missed it. Let us know.
Yeah.
We'll figure it out.
Dave Arginetti, yeah. Nicole, what was that tomato thing you mentioned for getting off your butt and doing stuff you want to do? The Pomodoro technique. That is, yeah, it's the technique. I looked it up.
It's the technique.
It's yeah, Pomodoro technique.
What else we got? Oh, by the way, I am working on the jewelry box free site video.
Yep.
I've never done a release this soon after the guild build, but I'm going to try to do that in the future. So as soon as the guild build is done, making a free version of the video to put out on the regular Wood Whisperer site. I think it'll be good. So look for that probably next week.
Dave also wants to know when doing dovetails, are Narex chisels beveled enough for the crispness?
For the Christmas?
Crispness.
Crispness.
Crisp.
What are you talking about? You know, the Narex chisels, Narex, have a pretty substantial bevel. I mean, there's probably a good 1/16 of an inch flat on the sides. So you do have to watch out for that. It's still not going to be as effective as a dovetail chisel, which makes a perfect angle, and there is no flat there. You know, I could get by with this, but if I had a dovetail chisel, I'd be a little bit happier with it. I don't know that that answers your question, but it's still, they're not perfect. If you're doing really small dovetails of very fine work, you're going to have to skew your chisel slightly to get it into the crook there without doing any damage.
So Jeannie asked it in the chat room. So if you are a guild member and you ask a question in the chat room.
Oh, whoa, she asked a question in the chat?
Yeah, that is not a guaranteed answer.
Jeannie.
Because no. I am only human and
Well, the reason is we don't know if you're a guild member in the chat room.
I just, things go.
Yeah, the live stuff is
and
kind of.
I grab what I can.
It's really a free-for-all.
Yeah, it really is.
Whatever Nicole happens to notice.
And I try to quickly grab it before it kicks it up again.
Yeah.
She says, I don't have a fancy Veritas curve drawing tool. What other methods do you recommend for drawing curves on the jewelry box front?
Okay, so this is something that I have probably done, and I can't give a specific, but I know I've done it on the free site, and of course I've also done it in the guild, but if you don't have those projects, this won't help you. Typically, you can grab a thin piece of wood, which I do not have. Shoot, I wish I had a sample for this. But a nice thin strip of wood. You could even grab something like hardboard, thin plywood, depending on the size.
Playing with curves, trestle table maybe?
Maybe the trestle table. I don't know what I used for that. You know what? I think the big trestle table for the kitchen is a two-part series that we did earlier in 2017. I had to make a big curve for the side of the table. And I didn't, even my Veritas ones, they're not long enough to do that. The only way to do it is to cut a thin piece of material, and then you use that to actually work as a bending strip.
Yep.
And there's a bunch of different ways you could secure it in position.
One?
Yeah, braces, top, wedges, and finishing knockdown trestle table part 2. So that'll show you that method. A lot of times you could even attach clamps or bricks to the end, and then again, it just depends on whether you're making a template or are you putting this on your final workpiece. But you use this long strip of wood, the more consistent it is, and that's kind of why I like to use something like MDF if I have it, because you have a little bit more consistent density across the strip. It'll bend to a fairly symmetrical curve.
Kenny on Facebook wants to know, is it risky to order, riskier to order wood online? Do you get a good selection of wood?
Well, it's always risky to order online because you don't know what you're getting. If a company is posting specific boards, you get a better idea. So if it's specialty material, you'll typically get a nice photograph of both sides of the board, and you'll kind of know what you're getting into.
Well, and I know with Bell Forest, their reputation kind of...
Reputation is everything. Yeah. Because Bell, for instance, supplies almost all of the guild projects and some of our free projects as well. And I've never heard anyone complain about the resulting material that they get.
And if there is an issue, they resolve it like that.
Yeah, so they are actually pre-selecting this material for you But if you have a knowledgeable person who knows kind of what it's going to be used for, they're being selective about this and you're getting good stock. So reputation is everything, and Bell Forest has earned a really good reputation, and that's why we keep working with them. So if it's a reputable place, it should be okay, but you still, if you're picky, right, and you're looking for very specific grain, online is just a difficult way to achieve that.
We got another question here from Claude Jones. Hi, I bought the Morris chair project, but I was wondering if it's okay to reduce the thickness of the components, say by 5 millimeters apart, possibly from the legs and the arms. I've bought some nice European oak.
Okay. Yes. Anytime you're reducing dimensions, you do have to be careful because things are cumulative. Like you reduce it here, then that causes another part to change. I mean, you could scale the whole thing down by 5 millimeters and there would be no harm in it, but you have to make sure that you work out what that impacts, because it will downstream.
Interesting.
Yeah.
All right.
Anything else?
I think, well, I'm sure there.
Does Jeannie have any more questions?
I don't know.
I would like to provide the best service possible for Jeannie.
Kevin wanted to know if there's any routers on sale right now. We don't.
Oh, let me check.
I
don't know. There's
only
almost
because
always
I just
on
posted
Amazon,
it.
Right?
There's so Festool is going to be increasing their prices on March 1st. Again, and everybody's like, "Oh." So if you head over to the Tool Nut, they're doing an additional sale. It's only on their website. There you can build your own Bosch package.
Oh, really?
Or maybe no, it was Makita. What did I? I just put it up yesterday, and of course it's like. Yeah, it's Makita, not Bosch.
$50 off Makita.
So you buy one tool and get it $50
$50 off a second tool. Oh, that's
and they have
cool.
So if you're on Facebook, scroll down on the Wood Whisperer page, you'll see the link. If you go to toolnut.com, you'll see the ad there too.
Yeah. So yeah, instead of looking for a router on sale, look for a company that's doing a deal.
Yeah. So and it's only on their website.
That's so much better than my smart-ass answer.
It really is.
Okay, I think we're done.
Let me just double check and make sure I don't have any more super chats.
Things?
No more super chats.
The battery's low,
I know. It's a good thing we're wrapping it up.
We're wrapping it up, y'all. All right, well, thanks for watching, everybody. I'm going to pick a winner real quick here.
Winner, chicken dinner?
I'm going to pick Corey, who asked the question about the anti-kickback doohickey spiky things.
The spiky things.
Yes. So Corey, Nicole will get in touch with you.
Yep.
You get in touch with Nicole, and then we'll give you a free guild project. Okay?
Chris wants to know what time is. You looked at your watch. What time is it? No, you can't. You're supposed to say.
I don't know what time it is because what's on my watch was a timer.
Oh, it's an Apple Watch.
I know it's 11:15, but I had a timer running. Then that's why I looked at my watch to see how much time was left.
All right.
I didn't actually know the time. I actually never know the time. In fact, yesterday, Mateo was waiting for us, and he had to go to the office and wait for me because I forgot to pick him up because I didn't know what time it was.
Yep.
Okay.
Get you a big clock.
I need a big clock. It won't happen. Okay. Well, thanks for watching, everybody. We appreciate your support.
Yes.
And we will see you next week.
Did you read off the Patreons?
I'll do it next week, Nicole.
Okay.
I'm trying to go sans phone. I've got this Apple Watch.
Yeah.
So if I don't have to carry my phone around, I think that's kind of cool. I dropped Mateo off and got a text message. I was like, hey, Matt, what's happening, dude? Click, and it went. So I don't have to carry my phone around, so it's in the kitchen.
Okay.
And I don't have my phone with me. But next time I will, and we will read our Patreon thank yous.
Thank you. All
right. Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
See you next week.